The LEGO Western theme is returning once again, and this time it's in a set called Fort Huck. Deep in the dusty outskirts of the Old West, Fort Huck is home to a gang of unsavory outlaws and bandits who've carved out a surprisingly successful operation. At the center of it all is their so-called miracle elixir, snake oil that's promised to heal all ailments and give the drinker renewed strength. Fort Huck holds maps with hidden trails and connections reaching as far as the Gold City and Legoredo. Snake oil might be the front-facing business, but the occasional bank and train robberies have definitely helped stock the fort with cash and weapons. All while the captured sheriff plans a daring escape with help from his best deputy. That is the lore and inspiration of this set by the designer BrickLink. Fort Huck comes in at roughly 3,450 pieces, making it the biggest Western themed set we've ever received. You get 10 minifigures, which is a solid number for a fort this size, plus 2 horses, 2 chickens, a scorpion, and a parrot mold. It feels very populated without being too overcrowded. This isn't one of those big builds that looks impressive but feels empty once it's done. There's something happening everywhere you look, much like Lion Knight's Castle and Thieves of Tortuga recently accomplished. From the outside, Fort Huck immediately stands out that this isn't just a wooden fence slapped into a square. The use of stucco-style walls, layered textures, and built-in rockwork gives the fort real weight and presence. It feels grounded in the terrain instead of just sitting upon it. The designer placed sand and dirt all up around the corner of the fort where it would realistically land. Starting at the front, you've got a large door just like a military fort would have, allowing wagons and supplies to pass in and out. There's a nice amount of green and pink foliage peppered around the set, giving some nice pops of color to the contrast of browns and tans. You get different piece elements to give the idea of the log-built walls, so it doesn't get boring to look at, as well as the red metal and tin roof which they would have actually used in the Old West. And you also can't forget the sign, which is the best Easter egg of all, pointing to Legoredo and Gold City, which are clever callbacks to the LEGO theme of 1998. Moving to the side, you've got the incredibly well-hidden play feature, the explosive brig. The story here is a captured lawman is locked away, but his loyal deputy has other plans. There's a hidden push button built directly into the rockwork, and when you press it, the wall blasts outwards, revealing an escape route. It's one of those play features that feels dramatic without being gimmicky, and it doesn't ruin the look of the fort when it's closed up. On this side as well, you've got the cannon lookout tower, so the deputy is going to have a real tough time sneaking by that to get to the TNT, but at least he brought 2 horses so they have a quick getaway. On the back of the fort, you've got a small door for offloading quick supplies and other needs. There's a small play feature back here you can turn as well to make the kitchen shake about and rattle the stovepipe outside of the fort. You also have the large lookout tower back here and that beautiful white stucco structure built right into the fort walls itself, which look great. I absolutely love the detail of how the bottom of the stucco is built using tans to give the idea the sand has stuck to the bottom of the buildings over time, and you also can't forget that brick-built vulture and the cattle skull. I also really like how the fort can be displayed open or closed. It's built in 5 separate sections, all of which can be rearranged into different open layouts. Whether you want a compact display piece or a wide cinematic play setup, it actually gives you the flexibility to change things up without tearing the build apart. And that kind of modularity always goes a long way for me. And if you didn't think this gang was bad enough, just take a look at this guy punting the poor chicken across the road. Inside is where the fort really starts to hit the mark. Starting in the kitchen, you can see where the green medicine is being produced. It even has ingredients that you can find around the fort itself, from the cactus flowers up to the ivy walls. The fort is filled with hidden details, Easter eggs, and tucked away storage areas that reward you for actually exploring the build. And because everything is split into separate sections, access is never frustrating. You're not fighting the model to get minifigures in place or to see what's going on inside. In the gang's main living area, you have a very nicely built safe with money overflowing and a smaller kitchen for quick meals beside the bed and table. You've got a small little storage area with some dynamite and weapons fully stocked, as well as some loot the gang has acquired over the past couple of weeks. I imagine this room is the gang leader's room because of how nice it is, and it even has a map of the surrounding region so the gang can plan their next robbery. In the cell where the marshal is being kept, it's pretty bare, but you could see how the wall is built a little weaker for that play feature to blow out the side of the wall. But at least while he waits, the sheriff is doing his best to dig his way out. And you obviously have to have a place to use the bathroom too. It's also worth mentioning that the physical model was built and tested for stability and playability, and it really shows. Nothing here feels fragile or overly complicated. You can actually interact with it without worrying that half the wall is going to come off in your hand. The minifigure lineup here is pretty strong. With 10 minifigures, you get a full cast of Outlaws and 2 lawmen that fit the story that is being told here. The inclusion of 2 horses is also huge for a Western set like this, of course. You get a load of weapons and accessories as well. And then there's the brick-built vulture. It's such a small thing, but it adds so much character, and you can see that perched nearby, as well as 2 chickens and some scorpion molds around the fort. Now obviously we're going to compare this to Fort Legoredo, and the evolution is pretty clear. Fort Legoredo was iconic, there's no question. It's one of the top 3 sets of all time for me, but it leaned heavily into the classic fenced-in fort design. Fort Huck feels like a natural successor that takes those ideas and pushes them forward, going on nearly 30 years now. Where Legoredo was more straightforward, Fort Huck is layered. The walls feel thicker, the structures feel more intentional, and the play features, especially the breakaway walls and modular layouts, feel far more ambitious. It's not trying to replace Fort Legoredo, but it absolutely feels like what you'd design if you revisited that concept today with the modern building techniques and a bigger storytelling focus. Price-wise, I'd estimate Fort Huck to land around the $300 range. That lines up pretty closely with sets like the Forest Stronghold in terms of its piece count. It's not cheap, obviously, but for a large Western display piece aimed at older fans, it feels well within reason. This is very clearly not a casual grab for kids. It's aimed at collectors and fans of the Western theme who want something substantial and something that can anchor a display and can be fun to interact with and easy to display no matter what type of shelves you have. Honestly, Fort Huck feels like a beautiful successor to Fort Legoredo. It's not just another wooden fort fenced off in a square or a military presence. The use of stucco textures, rockwork, and play features that literally blast walls open makes it feel dynamic and alive. And sets that give you multiple display options always win me over, because being able to change up how you display something keeps it feeling fresh long after the build is done. Heck, you can even just connect the stucco-walled sections of the set and use it as a pirate island fort that I think would fit perfectly since you already have the cannons and weapons. Or even as a castle fortification for factions like the Wolfpack. I mean, that's incredibly rare for a set that can be utilized so well for 3 entirely different themes. And I can't help but picture a scene straight out of Red Dead Redemption. John Marston standing outside of Fort Mercer, yelling for Bill Williamson to come out right before everything goes sideways. And it really makes me think how Lionheint's Castle was the peak moment for castle fans, and Thieves of Tortuga was for the Pirates theme, and how this set could be the perfect peak set for the Western theme. Fort Huck isn't just a display piece, clearly. It's a full-on Wild West story in brick form with display and a lot of playability. And for fans who've been waiting for the Western theme to come back in a way that makes sense, this feels like a major accomplishment in that. Anyways, that's going to do it for today, and I'll see you in the next video.